Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I will call this meeting of the Juneau Utility Commission to order. Roll has been taken. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Ross, second by Bart to approve the agenda. Any questions or comment? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public appearances, those that want to speak.
About approving the previous
Previous minutes.
Oh, God, I'm getting one. I'm trying to get it faster.
I can tell.
All right. Approve the minutes of the previous meetings.
If I could just make one correction, I'm
I got
sorry.
one too.
Just Rungy's spelled wrong, I don't want anybody to get offended. R-O-N-G-E.
Okay, instead of arguing.
Yeah.
And then, he said clean water funds, which will incur $48,600 in estimated cost, basically. It's not just for engineering.
Instead of engineering, it's estimated fees.
Total estimated
4
cost.
lines down under his report.
Oh, the 49,600.
Yeah.
Estimated cost.
And then on point 2, it just says got 18 laterals done.
Yep.
It's hydro excavated. Instead of done. 18 laterals hydro excavated.
Okay, I guess I meant done as in looked at. Hydro excavated.
Yep, that's all I got.
Okay.
Accept the minutes, make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Or a second.
Second.
Motion by Bart, second by Dave to approve the minutes of the previous minutes as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Now we go to public appearances. Let the record state, no one's here. So we'll move on to monthly business, approve the vouchers and the checks.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second that. Motion by Dave, second by Ross to approve the payment of the bills. Any discussion, any questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Council acts affecting the utility. Yes, there are none.
There weren't any.
Consumption and loss.
Didn't rain in October.
So, I guess one thing that we did do is, probably 2 months ago, 3 months ago, the new flow meter did get installed at the wastewater plant. That's metering the flow there. And ironically, both at the same time, the numbers got better. But I'm skeptical because side by side, the old flow meter and the new flow meter, the new meter numbers were slightly higher, so doesn't make sense to me, so. I don't know. That's why I didn't suggest it as, that fixed the problem, because if you looked at the numbers side by side, they were similar, if not
Well,
worse.
that's why I said it didn't really rain in October.
Yeah, so that's definitely helped us as well.
All right. Anybody have any questions at all on that? If not, we move on to delinquent customers.
Sent to the tax bill.
Yeah, the tax roll came through, so that's why there aren't any after over the 30 days, or over 60 days. Everybody went to tax roll, so it'll start going up a lot now. Until April.
But nice cleanup job.
Yeah.
All right. Reports of officials. Lori.
Last month we talked about, waiting until this month to go over the community contributions. And we had talked about Shop for Cups and possibly the food pantry. There was also, talk about, something more for the, gathering place, I think. But we didn't necessarily wanna vote on that because these are 2024 funds and that's not happening until 2025. So the funds do have to be spent before December 31st to be able to get reimbursed for them from the WPPI. So I don't know if you guys had any other thoughts as to contributions or what you'd like to do.
What's the dollar amount available, Lori?
I believe it was about $2,000.
The community contribution, $21.50. And the economic development, there's 621 in that.
Do the community contributions, they get matched, is that correct?
That is both
That
funds,
is
so that
including
is,
the match.
that's combined with WPPI.
Yes.
I'm wondering if, and maybe nobody has an interest in this, I'm just bringing it up. The Dodge Center Historical place over there, they run on a shoestring budget, and they're trying to, most of their folks have passed away. So they're trying to restart it again. And I was wondering if there'd be any interest in maybe giving them like $500. Ironically, that would probably cover the majority of their utility bill for the year. It's just an idea.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a good idea.
No, I think it's a good idea.
We've paid for gutters for them in the past and several other small items. So, yeah,
That would come out of economic development, right?
well, either or, they would probably qualify either or, but you'd have to use either the chamber or the EDC, for the conduit to them, but I'd be all in favor of that, seeing how we can expedite anything else in 24 if you wanna zero out the E EDC.
Thanks.
So do 621, chambers, huh? You're saying donate 621 to the chambers?
In
to them,
correction to
the historic.
the, yeah.
That makes sense. You wanna make that motion?
Sure, but what am I motioning?
But probably a fine line if it's economic development, but it's definitely preservation of our history of our community. And I know what Richard's been saying, they've been reaching out to get younger people involved, and I guess they do have a handful of younger people that finally have stepped forward, because as Richard said, all their officers have passed or aren't in any kind of shape to be able to contribute anymore, so I guess helping them out, they have a 5-year lease for $5 for the building from the city, so they don't have any overhead that way, but yeah, they do keep it heated all year long, and they're paying utilities, so, you know, I think if you wanted to donate the full amount, the 621, and zero out that account, I think it would be a good idea.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Your motion would be to donate $621 to the,
Dodge Center, that's what it's called, through the chambers.
through the chamber's account to give, ultimately to go to the Historical Society of Juneau.
Okay.
All right?
Sure.
Ross will second that motion. Is there any discussion about that? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have Shop for Cops.
2150.
We have 2150.
On the city side, they're looking for grants for pickleball courts. I mean, that would be a nice thing to keep it in town, you know, that'd be a nice jump start, $2,000 or something like that. But,
Is anybody writing a grant or
they're working on it.
as in?
We lost our grant writer, you know.
Yeah, on the board.
She had offered her services and probably would have been pretty effective and what have you, but, if you're looking to keep the dollars in town, I guess that's what I'm saying. I'd always like to see either somewhat related to utility functions, electric, water.
So I will bring up, I attended the rec department meeting this
There you go.
past meeting, and we've been discussing taking the ball diamond lights down and how prices have been pretty crazy. I have come up with a plan to rent a 135-foot man basket from Sunbelt. Then my department would do the work. The daily rates on them is $2,000. I believe I can get it done in a day, but not knowing because this is a new situation, we don't know what we're gonna come into. I made the suggestion to the rec department to approve for not to exceed $5,000 for the removal of the ball diamond lights. This was not to include our labor. I figured as a utility owned by the city that we would most likely donate our labor for that. But ultimately, we're probably looking at a minimum of $2,000 if we get it done in a day to rent that piece of equipment. So I don't know if we wanna consider donating to the rec department for that project or not. It's up to you guys. But that was not budgeted, that was not a budget item that they had accounted for in this year, or even next year, I should say. So I guess if we're looking at community contribution, that might be a good one as well.
And we've always given the Shop with Cops, which has been very good. I mean, it's a worthwhile donation.
Well, can we give $1,000 to one and $1,000 to the other, or something like that?
We never give that much to the Shop with
I think it's
Cops.
always like 500.
We gave $1,000 last.
We gave $1,000 last year, and
last year.
usually we give 900, 700 to 900 in the past years.
So we got 2150. What do you wanna give to the copper shops?
650.
500.
Yeah.
650?
500.
500.
Sure.
500 at copper shops, and then 1650 the rec department for both anyways.
I will tell you, with my involvement with Shop with Cops, it is a worthwhile deal, but they've tapped into just about every resource. They're getting some big dollars come rolling in. It's not like they are hurting at all. So, you know, they've got just about every agency around, nonprofit, that donate to them right now. They keep giving more and more to the kids for this function because of the fact that they have gotten so many people donating towards that. So, and we've done it over the years, so you can even skip a year or two and not feel bad about it by any means. But yeah, I have worked as a fireman, Shop with Cops, and there are a lot of needy families out there. The one thing I will say, I never recognized many of them from our own community. They were basically all from outside of town. I can't ever remember seeing, but maybe one family from Juneau that really gets benefit of it. So whether that makes a deciding a factor that you wanna dwell on or not, but it is a worthy cause. But like I said, if you wanna keep your dollars in town, we've got bills to pay, you know, right within the city, so, you know.
So, what is your pleasure?
Well, I guess I would make the motion to give, $500 to Shop with Cops and $60.50 to the rec department for taking down lights, and if they got a little extra money, they can, I don't know, put it towards pickleball courts or whatever.
I don't think there'd be any extra.
Probably not.
I'll second that.
A motion by Dick, second by Bart to donate $500 to Shop with Cops and $1,650 to the rec department for the light removal on the ball diamond on Addie Joss Field. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay. The only other thing I had given you, in your packets is the customer survey that's done by WPPI. They have, the results on there. They went to, 575 customers, and overall satisfaction is 74% with the services that we're providing. Just as an overview, on the lower section, there were, first column under the utility performance ratings, is the importance of, those items, that the customers had said these are they rated them as important. They're rated as their importance. And the second column is how they feel we're doing. So, something like delivers helpful customer service, where we have 19% improvement area there. They've said that's 92% important, and we're performing at about a 73% in their eyes. So, effectively at communicating during the energy emergencies, we're low on that as far as performing 67% compared to the importance of 89%.
Does it say, I didn't see anywhere of how many people responded.
We had 97 up in the upper right-hand corner. Juneau Utilities, I believe that is 97 out of the 575.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I would look through this and I was like.
I think it's kind of skewed as far as.
Especially the emergency responses, I mean, we've had it no longer than a 20-minute response since I've been here,
Yeah.
so.
And that's what I was gonna explain to you. I think that just because it's important to them doesn't, I guess, and I don't understand the performance gap really as far as how we're doing compared to how important it is. On the second page, it also has that they prefer to receive their notifications by email, and bill inserts, text messages, and being able to pay their bill and whatever online was 63%. Well, that's been available for a long time, and people might just not realize that it's there. I don't know. So anyway, I just thought I'd pass that information on from WPPI.
For the outage that I was involved in last, 2 weeks ago, was,
October 17th.
yeah, we were notified, and the power was off and back on far sooner than they had predicted.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, I had to do that stuff at the plant, because I always added wanted to be done before, it looked good,
Yeah.
so. But it, you know, it was on, back on, my wife was really pleased. Oh, it was really fast.
Well, and
Did you
even
fill
when
out the
there's an
survey?
outage, you're right there, when there's an outage, Nick's real good about getting it on Facebook and whatever to get it out there as good as we can.
I mean, I think there's a lot of skewing going on, especially lately with water quality. You got people upset, you know, and so they're coming into these surveys. You know, not that the quality of the water is bad, but it's just people come in with predisposed mindsets, I guess. But there's room for improvement always, so.
Do you have no venue to complain, maybe we'll complain?
This might be the people you disconnected, they had time to fill out the survey. They had to go outside because it was dark inside the house.
All right.
Other than that, that's all I got.
Anybody have any questions for Lori? If not, moving on. Nick?
All right. Well, we finalized the October 17th outage repair that we discussed at last month's meeting. If you guys remember, we had a pretty significant outage on a three-phase circuit that affected majority of Fairfield, Arbor Drive, South Street, a little bit of Ridge Road. Everything has been repaired, meaning we got put in new underground 4-aught. Thankfully, it wasn't piped. We were able to get the old stuff out. Pull new in. We put a new riser assembly up with polymer cutouts, new three-phase junction with that outage and some of the switching that took place to shift energy around through different circuits. 2 transformers between Fairfield and Arbor Drive. Bushings failed on the transformers, so then we had to schedule outages with a few customers. Dave was one of them, to replace those 2 transformers. So those have been fixed as well. Typically, you can fix a transformer by replacing those bushings, but the bushings were welded on, so we had to replace those transformers outright. So everything has been finalized and repaired. The one last thing that we're going to do is we're going to increase the tap wire size on our loop feed that we were feeding that circuit with when that outage took place. That tap wire was set up only for 100 amp loop feed, which thankfully it happened in a mild time of the year. So we're going to upgrade that to a 200 amp tap wire size. So that way, if this would happen in summer, we're have things sized correctly. So that's the last thing we got to do on that, which we'll do this week. We'll get that tap wire up and swapped out. Cook's finished up installing our pipe along Fair Street. So the only thing that we're waiting on will be next year's budget. Will be the wire pulling into 500. We got majority of the 4-aught installed and pulled in. Nick and Dylan set 3 transformers, did the terminations. They're just sitting there de-energized. I'm just waiting for the 500 to come in to get that installed so we can energize that and have a quick transition when that conversion fully takes place. We installed, like I said, the 3 transformers, pulled in 4-aught, placed a junction box, installed secondary risers, 2 behind Fair Street, between Fair Street and the post office there. Nick went on an outage call to Columbus and assisted them for 3 hours with the thumper. They had some underground issues. It ended up not being a primary underground fault. It ended up being a customer. They did some rewiring on a motor that was causing a fault to go back onto the primary side of the system and throw in some fuses. So that was billed to Columbus for his 3 hours of overtime and equipment. We did some meter diagnostics. There does remain one that we are not able to pull a diagnostic from, meaning there's a motherboard inside those meters that we can communicate with a device. It's basically just an Android phone that you put a probe on it. It sends some signals to it to deliver information back. It lets us know if there's any error codes etc. And for some reason, it's not communicating. The meter's functioning as it should. Trent, our meter technician, is coming in Wednesday to do an infrared check on our overhead system. So while he's here, we're gonna have him take a look at that. We try to do everything we can to fix these meters instead of just swapping them out because they're expensive. Each meter is, you know, you're looking at $200 a pop. And when you start looking at 30, 40, 50 a year, it gets pretty pricey, along with the long lead time. So we're hoping to restore that meter and get it working. We had our sub-inspection on our industrial substation. We have 3 substations, and every year we go through a 3-year rotation to go through all the components of the substation, and as well as we take oil samples on all 3 power transformers in our sub. From that inspection, overall our industrial substation is in good shape. The transruptor, which is the high side circuit switch, that's SF6 gas, had a really high resistance on the bottle chambers, and we operated those chambers multiple times, and after doing that, the resistance came down quite a ways, where it's within range of where it should be. We did flag it to keep an eye on this. It was also noted that the year model from the manufacturer transruptor we have, 2002 to 2004, has been known to have these issues. So this will be something we're going to keep checking every 3 years and just watch closely. The transformer had a little bit low pressure, 0.5 psi. He added some nitrogen to increase that psi to 3.5. You always want to stay above 0 psi on a transformer, because as soon as you start fluctuating negative to positive, you pull in moisture into that transformer, which then is going to cause issues on your coil. So we just added a little nitrogen to that to increase the psi on that. Voltage regulator had a little rust on R1 recloser, which is the west one. We're going to sand it off a little bit, put some rust reformer on there and paint it over it, and just prevent that from keep on rusting out. It's not bad, it's just surface rust. And then we had 1 drag hand solenoid on our voltage regulator. All that is it tells us our voltage regulators monitor and buck and boost our voltage on the primary side. Say there's a lot of load going to the downtown, it'll boost the voltage on the primary to take in consideration for that voltage drop you're seeing from the load. So the drag hands let us know how far our regulators have been busting or boosting, and we keep track of that on a monthly basis to make sure we're not seeing anything outside of our monthly normal. Usually we're seeing +4, so -4 to +2. That's what our typical drag hands are, and for some reason it wasn't resetting. Again, that was a manufacturer thing that is happening frequently with these regulators, but now they came out with a new solenoid system that's much more reliable, so we've changed that out. And then all the oil samples from the transformers, all 3 substations showed good, that there's no big variations from last year, so that's showing that we have healthy power transformers, which is good to see. We have 1 more additional Sunset View solar that was installed, and that was for the street lighting. We need to test that yet and get it on the schedule. So we will be testing that, and that will be going online, I would say, before the end of the month. It depends on when Full Spectrum Solar can get in and schedule that. And then finally, ATC project. We did get approval from ATC to move forward with the purchasing of the materials for the project. From past months, I've said they want us done at the end of September. It's going to be close with lead times. Typically, they say that utilities will bill them at the end of the project. I told them we will not be doing that because it's $258,000 for the materials, and that's pretty substantial to a size utility like us. So I will be ordering this tomorrow, and we'll be invoicing them as soon as I place that order, so. And to recap on the rec department, basically I'm just looking for a consensus that we're okay with donating our labor. I don't wanna make a decision you guys aren't comfortable with, as long as you guys are comfortable with us donating that labor. The way I look at it is, the city owns the utility, we're working for the city. I don't see why we would be charging for that time. If everybody's okay with that.
The only suggestion I would have is you document so that you got your hours documented for that,
Can-
and that's put in the record someplace.
And that's
Because
all
there
I
may
got.
be a time when we'd be looking for a favor from them, where they could return that favor. So,
Absolutely. I will record our labor.
and equipment.
That's all I got.
Nick didn't offer to climb the pole with hooks and belt to take those down. We gotta rent that truck.
I told him, I said, the guys, well, this would have been what, 18 years ago, 19 ago? When was Jeff here? Jeff used to take that bucket truck up and climb out of it, and then climb up onto the pole on it. Yeah, we will not be doing that.
You didn't volunteer, Nick? All right, does anybody have any questions for Nick?
Well, I guess I do. We have a transformer in the backyard of somebody's house, and they wanna, that cost is free to them? I mean, the transformer, it's not an expense when you put a new home there?
So, we offer up to 100 kVA transformers. So say a new customer comes in, say it's a solo house, it's a mansion, and it's gonna take whatever kVA and it ends up being over 100 kVA. That difference is charged to the customer. Our fixed meter charge that is made through our PSC and WPPI rate study, that is built in to recoup costs eventually. You know, the average life expectancy of a transformer is, they say it's only 30 years, but we have transformers out there for 50, 60 years. So we do recoup those costs through fixed meter charges over the duration of those 30 to 50 years. But yes, typically it's a free, for one service, they get one standard service, and it's decided by the utility, meaning if there's a really long service, say they have a 5-acre lot, which you don't have in Juneau, but say there was a long route, we would charge for a long route, we would charge for bad soil, rocky soil, but if it's a standard service, standard transformer, that is covered by the utility.
But if we have to do a primary extension, they have to pay for that.
Primary extensions, yeah, like Sunset View got charged.
Paid for primary.
So like Dodge County Housing, they didn't pay for the transformers because we used 50 kVA and less transformers. But they paid for the primary extension, they paid for, we put in deep basements for the steep elevations, they paid those differences. They paid for the secondary main extensions, so if you have to put in pedestals, 350 secondary triplex, they pay for that. The only thing that's free is a 200 amp service, so a 4-out triplex to a house and a transformer. That's basically what's covered by the utility.
And the free service is what, 125 feet?
Actually, our rates and rules does not distinguish it. It literally just states it's per utility discretion.
Alliant would, after 125
Right.
feet, they charge per foot.
So if a person wanted a supercharger, you had talked about that, to charge their electric car, they pay the difference?
It's gonna get that existing services, because us utilities have been talking about that, because if you see these EVs start going in, you're seeing the load start to increase. If they don't necessarily need to upgrade their service, then no, we would eat those costs. But as soon as that, a customer will say that they're gonna go above a 200 amp service, then yes, we can start charging on that. But if you gotta think, most transformers are feeding 5 residential houses, it's gonna be hard to decide where that charge is gonna go. Say 2 out of the 5 residents got EV vehicles, is the utility, there's nothing established yet as far as how that's gonna work out.
So somebody is looking at that.
Yeah, the utilities, it's been in discussion because the technology changes have now, with the AMI metering that we get instant feedback from it, we're able to link the meters to what size transformer KVA. Say there's 5 meters. There's a program now where it'll take the input monthly from those meters and say, is your transformer adequately sized for those loads? We got about a little over a quarter of our system on that program right now. We're working on getting 100%. But right now there's nothing close to being overloaded, I should say. Most of our transformers are oversized quite drastically, actually. So.
Do you have any single-family residential services bigger than 200 amp in the city?
No single residents. We have a couple, I think there's only 2. There's only 2, but those are like multifamily duplexes that share, it's like a shared service. We have, that corner building on Depot Street and East Oak is one of them. And then, I think there's one more, so there's only 2
I think
services.
I only ever did one house that had a bigger than and I forget, that was a humongous house.
But I don't know,
The garage was as big as my house.
yeah.
320 is our common in
Yeah.
Wyatt and We Energy territory.
But we'll see, because, I don't know, Juneau's gonna be lagging, I think, in the EV world, obviously, but I don't know when that transition will take place, if it does take place, hopefully when I'm retired. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for Nick?
What is the average on those solar homes? They've all got about the same size panels. How
Yeah.
much are they actually kicking back into our system, or how much are they really saving?
So, when we tested all 30, we had some, that were producing twice as much as, I mean, we're talking, say, like this duplex next to the next duplex. Same exact setting, same exact roof plan, and it was cut in half. I'm trying to remember what our readings were.
13.2, 7.2.
We're averaging anywhere from 13.2 amps coming back onto our system to 7 amps on the other. So majority of those ones that are reading 13.2 amps are canceling out their meters.
Their consumption.
Yeah.
Not good for electric
It
utilities.
isn't. It's not. And then when we saw that the solar was going in for the street light, it's like,
Yeah.
but that, we try to size them to so, I'm trying to figure out what, we size them accordingly to the house, so we can, they can't go any higher than a 20. And if they apply for higher than a 20, they have to give a reason why, like, this is how much consumption we're gonna be.
And is that fairly consistent during the daytime hours?
Depending on the roof plan, yes.
Yeah.
So like, the Habitat homes, they're not doing well at all, for some reason. But the gentleman that put it up on Main Street, 2 down from,
Right next to the ice cream shop.
that one is performing, like, he's getting a credit every month.
Even during the air
Not
conditioning months?
in the winters.
What about the air conditioning month? When his load is higher?
I'm pretty sure he was, yeah.
Wow. So they are effective.
Because I watched it pretty closely for 4 months, and he got a credit for every month. So, but yeah, I don't know why, if it's a manufacturer difference between that guy on Main Street and Habitat home,
So they can zero out their light bill for a month.
yeah.
We can go through all that extra
And we're,
expense to make it happen.
and we're talking about, you know, how to protect the utilities from
Yeah.
years down the road here, and there's no good answer. I mean, honestly, the only good answer, that it's not a good answer, but everybody else is gonna end up paying for it. Cause on your fixed meter charges,
And you're just gonna have a big higher meter fee.
your fixed meter charges are just gonna rise, and
Yeah, the rest of your customers are gonna pick it up.
but there has been traction in the PSC to not give them the wholesale power cost, like what we charge the customer, that they're not getting the same in return.
Well, it's a great thing that they're effective and that they're paying back, because so many of them didn't pay back. By the time they got to the end of their life,
Right.
their investment was wasted, really, so, you know. But yeah, from a standpoint of electric utility, they're kind of a double-edged sword there, you know. And it seems like what we've seen around town are government subsidized. So, you know, when John Q's gotta go out and buy the package by himself, it's a slow payback. Cause they'll offer, incentives or whatever, and they'll base your payments on your savings, so it could be a long time before you actually get any money back, but.
I guess the only good thing out of especially the Dodge County housing setting there, is the customers are getting that credit, so we shouldn't see many delinquencies with that. At first, I don't know if you remember me talking to
Mhm.
the understanding with the Dodge County housing was gonna be taking all those meters, and the electric usage was gonna be built into their rent, and it wasn't. So that was discouraging to find out at the end there, and, but like I said, the only good thing about the solar is hopefully the utility bills are not as high, and they can afford the bills and not have any issues there.
I'm sure most of the people around this table don't understand that their water meter, they got individual water meters inside the place, and they're including water with their rent. So they're paying meter charges for 30 units for water and sewer. That makes no sense to me at all, but their logic was, well, then we'll know where there's a leak.
We can track it, right?
Yeah, they can keep track of it. But boy, talk about waste. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, our tax dollars are subsidizing that program, you know, and it might be state and federal dollars, not so much local dollars, but we all pay our share of that. And for them to have individual meters put in every unit and not assess the people using that water and sewer, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't sound like that was thought through too well. Now in Horicon, that same setup there, they just got one master meter.
I suggested it that when the guy was here, I told him just put one meter in, he wanted.
Yeah, cause we talked 1 meter and then
Yeah,
just have
just put one
valves
in
for
the
each
driveway, yeah.
resident.
And look at what the pricing of piping all that separately is too. Nuts. Thanks, Nick.
All right, anybody else? All right, Alex,
We did make an offer to a, potential employee, and he did accept it this last month. I will not name him until drug results come back. But as of right now, he is going through the process to start working here. At the wastewater plant, the modifications to the salt clarifier are almost complete. We anticipate that tank to be started up sometime this month. The roofing portion is nearing completion. We haven't had any more issues with leaks during that, so they're doing pretty well now. The new garage has power and the heaters are tied in and running. That's a welcome sight. The final tie-in for the freshwater well line will be done tomorrow, onto the new plumbing that they've been installing. A lot of existing equipment is being refed from the new MCC panels. Natural gas service was started on November 8th, and the boiler system, the new boiler system was completed and started on November 11th. one thing that we did notice with this new boiler system was, we just weren't getting the heat out of it like we had in the past. But after troubleshooting and the installer continually telling me that there was just air in it, I finally traced it down to they actually built it wrong. They put a water feed into a water return line and welded it together, and that's your issue. So they'll be coming back to fix that. Just one of those things. It was a fourth-year apprentice that did the bulk of the work, so that's kind of something that we run into. But at least they acknowledge that that happened and they'll be coming to fix it, so. The boilers are running, they're the low volume, high efficiency variety, so the way they work is, you know, instead of the old boiler turning on for 5 minutes and then off for an hour, these ones just never turn off. So it runs 100% of the time at 30%, 40%, 50% capacity.
It's modulating.
Right, yeah, so, I mean, instead of a 800,000 BTU boiler, we have two 400,000 BTU boilers. And of that, one of them's running at 30 to 50% all the time. So, they claim it's more efficient that way, but.
They switch them back and forth then, or
They
which
aren't
one's one
currently-
lead and lag?
They aren't currently, but they will be, yeah. So, it's kind of a neat system once it's all up and running, but, yeah, we're starting to utilize that natural gas line that we put in, so.
Put money in the budget for replacement, because 10 years from now, you'll be talking about it.
Tuesday, November 19th, the article was published in the Watertown Daily Times to talk about our wastewater plant project. I believe he also mentioned our Plant of the Year award page as well. I don't know if anybody received this paper.
I do.
I saw it.
Do you have a copy of it? So I looked a couple places trying to get a copy and I couldn't find any, so we would definitely appreciate it. Just so we can drop one off at the wastewater plant.
You keep them that long, Ross? My wife, I hardly get to read it, and it's in the trash.
So if we can find one, we would certainly appreciate it.
For as much time as he spent bothering us, Alex, I was expecting 2 pages, you know.
I was expecting him to at least tell us when it was published.
Oh,
It
okay.
was like a week or two later, and I thought, boy, he must have published this by now.
I was hoping you would have added more to it and more pictures.
Do you have the guy's name?
Ed.
That who did it?
Polish Ed.
You should be able to contact him and ask him for a copy.
I have his contact info, yeah. So we
It's
can-
on this, we should be able to get a copy of it.
Is it online also?
It is online, but you have to
You have to
pay
be
for a
subscribed.
subscription.
Yeah, nothing's free anymore, Dick.
You can pull up the headline and you'll see it on the
It
front
gives
of
you like the
but-
first couple lines and then it says, if you wanna read the rest.
Yeah. So, beyond that, November 22nd, if you recall the public education violation that I was given last month that I talked about. I originally said that we didn't have any ramifications from it. The DNR called and said they changed their mind. So I have to do a public notification of, that I screwed up. So that'll be going out in the bills, and then I'll have to do a newspaper thing to go with it, so. They get to screw up all they want, but when it's my fault,
Is that the one we already replaced?
yeah.
Okay.
We do have to do something with the paper yet, but.
That's the article that we already did and it's gonna go twice
In the bills or in paper?
in paper.
Oh.
No, that was for next,
Oh.
that's not supposed to. Okay, never mind.
Okay, so we'll have to do that. You'll notice in your bills what I'm talking about this next month. November 25th, we had Woodstream, the Hummingbird place, dumped 190 gallons of their nectar, which in the past, when they would call us and say they accidentally did that, it would bring a whole bunch of concerns, things to adjust and change and check on to make sure we were doing okay. Where with this new plant, we were able to just watch the trend lines and make sure everything was performing the way it's supposed to, and it handled it without issue, so. We certainly can appreciate the new equipment that we have for circumstances like that. Other than that, we completed CPR and safety training this month. Aqualis was here, which formerly was Northern Pipe. They rehabilitated 2 manholes and grouted leaks on East Center Street and then downtown behind the sewer behind downtown in the alleyway and under the bowling alley. They grouted more leaks there, so we're trying to catch some leaks, save a little bit on infiltration, but we haven't found any golden ticket ones yet that seem to be.
What happened to our lining on that?
So, okay, the lining is doing phenomenally.
Okay.
Problem is, all they did was where every service was, they just cut a hole open and that was it. While where all the old taps were leaking.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, the pipe itself is great, but the service connections are all leaking. So, they tried to repair that as well as they could in each of those points.
So what's the permanent solution to that?
Acorn Lane?
Well, that we tried to promote with a former utility commission.
That's
Yeah.
the only one I got, unless you wanna change your East Oak project and sewer for the whole thing.
No. And you'd have to repipe everything on the inside of the properties, you know, so. That's too bad.
That's kinda too late on that.
I thought that was all addressed. The laterals were all addressed before we signed the contract for that lining.
Yeah, we
That's
just-
before you, I
we
know
just
that.
resurfaced
Yeah.
it all.
It was just filling up, like, the main was long.
I'm saying the road too.
Acorn? Yeah. Yeah, so we tried to fix what we could from those taps, because they were showing evidence of leaking, so. And then Qualis also televised the sewer for Oak Street downtown, because Bruce now brought it to my attention that he wanted to make sure where all the services were, what services were there, just so we could get a better handle on what's all there coming into the bid that's out right now, so that, so we paid $1,470 to televise it. But we did also add another sewer service lateral that we weren't necessarily aware of otherwise, so that would have been a change order on the project if we hadn't investigated that, so. I think the overall goal was to minimize surprises during this project coming up here. Then on the 27th, Peeper Electric worked with us to install the generator outlet at the new RIF 2 panel, so now we can operate that off our generator as well, since that was missed on its upgrade when it was redone a few years ago. So, that was our month. That's all I got.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Alex?
Yeah, I was just hoping to find something to cut out.
Okay, moving on. The president. On the personnel meeting, we came up, review, discuss, and possibly approve changes to section 201, item 1 of the employee handbook. The existing wording is presently in your
The last page in your packet.
last page in the packet, and the new wording is underneath it. If we pass it tonight, it goes from here to joint personnel, which according to what I found out is going to be December 17th.
Basically just remove the language about taking the Fridays off.
Two sentences came out, I believe it is.
So then what's the result of this?
I guess the goal was to mirror what we've been doing for the last 3+ years, if the policy matched that. But the biggest thing is, I guess we've had enough work to keep everybody busy and not force people to take off when they don't necessarily want to take off.
The changes you take out Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So how does that affect overtime? I just want to be clear on how
They,
it all
you would
works.
be getting overtime for the time that you're
Working on the weekend?
working on the weekend. Which, if you would take it without pay, either way, you're still getting overtime pay for working the weekend, it's just that
you would have another.
It's just
day.
you have another, they would get paid another 8 hours of straight time.
Right.
They would be getting another 8 hours of straight time, basically. Which, according to Alex, they've been doing that way for a while,
It's
so
happening
it's
now.
doing
So
that way.
basically,
We're
every
just
3 weeks, we're just always getting 3.5 hours overtime.
times 2 days.
That's the way we're
But
doing.
they were getting overtime anyways for their weekend work.
Right, it's not changing the
But
fact
they
that it's
didn't have
full
to.
But
overtime.
they didn't have to work a Friday,
Yeah.
although they were.
Well, they were forced to take off the following Friday then, so if you had 7 hours at overtime, you'd be making 11 hours of wages. But then you're forcing them to take 8 hours off, so the ultimate outcome is you're making an extra 3 hours of money.
So, when does the work week run from? Sunday,
Saturday to,
Sat-
or Sunday to Saturday.
Sunday to Saturday?
So that's
So
the
if somebody
hard part
works
is-
Sunday, and then they work the following Friday, they get overtime for that Sunday, and they get overtime for 3.5 hours on that Friday also.
Monday through Friday is always the straight time.
Yeah, Monday through Friday be straight time.
It's just getting rid of the,
They don't get
Forcing-
overtime for a Friday work.
no matter what.
No,
Okay.
That clause is not in anywhere.
You understand what I'm getting at?
You're looking at the
40-hour week.
40-hour
Well,
work
it's
week.
either, it being that it starts on Sunday, you would get straight time for Sunday, and then 3.5 hours overtime on Friday. If you go from the beginning of when you start working to the end of when you start working that week. But basically, it's a Monday
So
through Friday
the
is
work week
regular.
is always considered Monday through Friday for us as straight time.
Right.
It's just the paychecks are split on Saturday to Sunday. So depending where the pay period splits, if you have the whole weekend in the paycheck or not, and when that Friday off is, your paychecks are always different. If you would have that Friday off, and when the weekend falls.
Because what I'm reading here is if your weekend work, you get time and a half anyways.
No matter.
So,
And then Monday
and
through
then I don't
Friday
know
is
if
the
there's a
normal
policy
40 hours.
somewhere, in the policy book, Gail know.
Oh,
But that says about 40-hour work week.
Right.
And anything over 40 hours, it's
Yeah.
time and a half, so.
Right.
So I'm saying, is a person get time and a half on Sunday, because it says here, they get time and a half, and
We
then
never
on
did it that
Friday,
way.
they
Yeah,
get
no.
time and a half for that extra.
it hasn't.
And I think in the payroll system, I think it is set up different for the treatment plant staff because of the weekends. Cause if they would have off on a Thursday, if they call in sick or whatever, if they have to work the weekend, they'll still get the
The
overtime for the
overtime
weekend.
still happens on Saturday, Sunday, no matter if
Right.
the 40 hours or not.
Right, I understand that part.
Okay.
I'm saying if the work week's from Sunday
Right,
through Saturday.
Right, we're not including the 3.5 hours of overtime, say you started on Thursday or
Well,
Sunday.
Maybe they should.
It's not a bad idea. I'm welcome for you to bring that one in, but.
Well, that's, I'm just saying.
They overate and over 40.
See, actually, a lot of places don't do over 8 anymore, they just go over 40.
Yeah.
I don't know what our
Ours
policy
is over-
says.
Ours is over 40, and then if you take off, let's say I get called in, call-ins are different. Let's say it's a scheduled overtime, it's straight time then. I mean,
Until you reach
salary
40 hours
Say
worked.
Nick, say we had a scheduled overtime or after hours, like an outage for class loss, let's say, and he took a sick day the next day, he would not receive that overtime because he didn't have 40 hours in for that.
You have to have 40 hours of work
Yeah.
hours.
In the week.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
working hours.
Right. It's not over 8 hours a day, like it used to be.
You can change it to that if you want. Nobody will complain.
I'm not saying, I'm just trying to figure out what's supposed to work. And I want everybody aware of how it's gonna work, or how it could possibly work.
Right. That would, I guess, the way it's been done, I think it would, this answers the question that joint personnel wanted us to handle from my end. And, but if it should come the other way and it comes that we gotta add overtime at the end, then when does the overtime occur? You count
Well,
it
it
on.
occurs after 40 hours.
Yeah, so are you
So
gonna,
if you work 43 and a half hours, you know, you get 3.5 hours overtime pay at the end of the week too also. So you end up getting 7 hours of overtime pay, right?
Well, no, because you
No,
wouldn't be
you wouldn't
getting,
work on it.
you wouldn't be getting it.
You'd
then
be getting
for the
3.5
first-
hours of overtime for the Sunday and 3.5 hours at the end of the week. That's 7 hours.
that would be,
Correct.
that would be pyramiding it.
So
But
what you're
there's-
getting at is,
I'm just going by what
I
it
know,
says.
I know,
Do
but
you-
that would require pyramiding. I believe there is a thing in the pay thing about pyramiding.
But that's not gonna happen unless you have a person that's doing back-to-back weekends.
right now that's happening.
For one of your full staff, it shouldn't.
Right. So I guess,
You know what I'm saying, cause they're alternating weekends, so they're Sunday, say it's their weekend, they work Saturday, Sunday.
And are you classifying Sunday as time and a half?
No,
It's double.
well, no,
No?
Sunday is time and a half on their schedule.
There is no double time in the,
On the wastewater treatment plant checkups, it's just time and a half. But they work Saturday, Sunday. So then the next weekend, there's gonna be a different employee working that Saturday, Sunday. So you would never have, it's always gonna be a Sunday to Saturday is only gonna be 3.5 hours. And the week before that, you had that 3.5 hours on your Saturday, so that'd be on the paycheck
So you have
before,
Monday
or that
through
week before
Saturday
that.
instead.
Cause it's Sunday to Saturday pay periods.
well, I guess what he was getting at, to my understanding, is that Sunday, 3.5 hours work is counting, should or should not count as hours worked. So you're still starting to accrue into your 40.
Right.
By Friday, you hit your 40, you're into overtime.
Well, and that's what I
Right.
was saying about the
So-
payroll system, I think is set up that
Right,
that
and
doesn't
that's-
happen.
I guess it just
Saturday
comes
and
down to
Sunday.
if you want to add the wording to say hours worked on the weekend does not count towards your 40 hours of hours worked.
But the way we log it though is on my
I don't
pay.
even know if you can do that.
Well, what I can tell you is what we're doing right now is not that.
No,
So-
I understand that.
I just, I know,
I
that's,
understand. I'm just bringing it up because that's what I read. And we have a person on city personnel that is gonna read that word for word.
yeah, I understand your,
But that's why also the wastewater treatment plant has their own schedule pay. So, I mean, that's, really shouldn't affect anything.
Yeah, they-
Always.
That paragraph is only is for wastewater, does not affect anybody else, that's the problem. How many,
But it says it right at the start, wastewater treatment plant.
I think one thing we chose a panhandle problem, it went by group district.
yeah,
If Pam has issues with it, she will let us know.
she
I
has,
think she might.
she hasn't had, she's been doing this now for a couple of years, at least 2 years for sure. And she hasn't had a problem with it, in fact, she and I have talked about it to that point.
You know, I would suggest that you, go ahead with this if you want. I'm gonna abstain because I'm on the city personnel committee also. And, but, you know, if the rest of the folks here vote for it, at least it'll go forward to the personnel committee and it'll be discussed there.
Okay?
Everybody, is that a, yeah,
All right.
that's.
Okay, I understand it, so.
I don't know if it's the right course of action or not, but that's the course of action you're taking.
All right. Well, I will make the motion that we change to the, go to the proposed change as pointed here in the paperwork. Is there a second?
I will say.
Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? With one abstention.
Staying, yeah.
All right. The only other thing I have is on the, I believe it's the 18th of December will be the next meeting at the wastewater plant for those interested. At 10 o'clock in the morning. Boarded and the board's directors for WPPI meets the next day.
The personnel meeting to talk about that, is there any other agenda items you're aware of?
Not right offhand. I haven't done anything with any.
Just
Okay.
for us?
That's all we have on it. Is there anybody have any questions for me? If not, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing other than wishing everybody around the table and your families at home a happy holiday.
Okay. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Bart.
Second.
Second by Dave to adjourn. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.